Hello, my name is Doug Davison. I'm the president and one of the owners of SmiteWorks, the creators of the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about some of the new features that we just released in version 3.2 of Fantasy Grounds. This is a major overhaul of our system, and we've really drastically changed how things are handled in the back end, how data is presented to people, and how you access that information. So I want to dive right in and kind of show you some of the new features that you might uncover as you explore 3.2. Now, I do want to throw out one possible caution, is that if you have not, if you're just now using 3.2, the update came out on Tuesday, and if you have any custom extensions or community built extensions that you're utilizing with your campaign, those may or may not have been made compatible with this latest version. So what we do is we encourage everyone to turn off all extensions, and then to go look on the forums and see if there are new versions of those extensions that are compatible with 3.2. If you don't, you may encounter some weird kind of issues. If that's the case, then just close out your campaign, turn off all your extensions, and then try again with those extensions unloaded and see if you still have the same issues. If you have any further issues, feel free to post up on our forums, and we'd be happy to help diagnose any sort of issues. So without further ado, I'm going to move my webcam down to the corner here, and I'll kind of just go right in and show you some of the new features. So the first feature is that all of the buttons on the side are now dynamic, and so you can modify those by going into your library. And what we have is we have all of your standard, any of the modules that you have loaded here, those will show up in the same format as before. You can go into the modules window, and now you have this search feature. So you can look for, I want to look for, if I can spell right, anything that says 5th edition, for instance. And you can see whether you have them open or not. The other thing that you can do that makes it very nice if you have a whole lot of modules like I do, is that you can turn on the all or loaded. So this shows just the things that you have loaded, and then you can go back to the all mode. And then you have the same functionality as before, where you can decide whether you want to allow the players to access it. So here I have the Elemental Players Companion, Elemental Evil Players Companion, and the Players Handbook Deluxe are both allowed for players to open those and access those while they are connected. But the buttons, going back to the buttons, you'll see at the top of the screen we have all of these different links to different things. We also have these other what we call playset buttons at the top. So here I've got play loaded right now, and that's going to change what's on the side here. If I switch it to GM mode, then this is what I expect that I'll want to use whenever I'm building my campaign. So this is part of your DM prep stage, where you're going in as a dungeon master, and then you're creating new NPCs and encounters, items, treasure parcels, all of that sort of stuff. When you're actually playing, you may want a more streamlined set of options. When you're creating a brand new character, or you're in a leveling process, go to create PCs, and now you'll see that you have PCs, backgrounds, classes, feats, etc. You can also jump right to any of these directly by just clicking on, say, classes, for instance. Or if I wanted to add this functionality, so if I wanted to add notes, I could just click the little radio button next to it, and I could add, whatever other items that I want to be available, as a button on the side. But we think that for the majority of people, you're going to look at the GM, the play, the create PC, or the all. I mean, these are all of the buttons. And each of the different rule sets that is built on top of Core RPG will have that new functionality. Some of the community rule sets may not have this functionality yet. So that's the library changes, the button changes. So there are also a number of other changes directly within each of these lists. So for instance, images and maps, I'll pull that up first because it's one of the more simpler ones. So you still have a link to the folder where you can store your stuff. You can go to the store to look for new maps, and you'll see that it has every different map that I have loaded here, and it now says page 1 of 18. So this used to have a very large list, and depending on how many modules you had loaded, that list may take a little while longer to scroll through. Now, you can just kind of page through these results like you would on a web page, and it's going to be very fast. In addition, if I wanted to look for anything that said the word map on it, I could just type in the word map, and it narrows it down and shows me only the items that say the word map on those. Additionally, you'll see that some of these These modules, for instance, are not assigned to a group. These other ones are assigned to a group. So for instance, if I wanted to look at all the Dungeon Master's Guides maps, you know, you can pull those up individually there, or I could select from a drop-down list and pull, you know, just those. So if I want to pull the book of, get rid of my filter, the Book of Lost Spells, there's all the images there. Here's my D&D map pack with just those items, and so forth. Dungeon Master's Guide should show up here as well. And so when you're in, when you create your own maps, they're going to go into a group called None by default. And then I'll show you how you can group and organize those later on in the encounter. But if you create a new thing and you don't know where it went, it probably is in the None group. It should also show up under the All group. So you can kind of use that to filter out what you want to do. Additionally, if you know that, like here, if I'm looking at, you know, say this Accursed Defiler, for instance, and I say, oh, okay, I want to see what other things are just in the Tome of Beasts. Instead of selecting it from the group here, the alternate way of selecting it would be to click on the link here. You have one other thing as well, which is the ability to share items. So if I wanted that, let's say this Abominable Beauty, if I wanted to share this, I could share that with the players just like I normally do. And now there's an indicator that says that I've shared that, and it's now a public image. That indicator was there before, but now what you can do, if you want to very quickly go back to your All window and click on Share, this tells me these are all of the items that I have shared across all of my modules. So it makes it very easy to see those. And then if I want to unshare that for some reason, I just click on the link, click on the P, and it goes away and it's no longer shared with the player. So it will remove that image from the player's screens. So that's kind of the change on some of the list features. You'll see some more in different areas. One area where that happens is going to be under the Items section. So under the Items section, looks like I was doing some playing around earlier. So under the items, it's going to be very similar. You can go through and you can look at stuff in just one book or resource. So if I only wanted to look at the stuff that's in the player's handbook, that would give me a list of all of those items. You can further filter. You can search like you always have, but you can further filter and look by a specific type of item. So if I only want to look at adventuring gear, for instance, or if I only want to look at rods or rings or whatever, I can pull those up. But the nice thing here is that in this particular case, you'll see that I have multiple versions of some of these items, and that's because I have duplicate data that's presented in the SRD content, which is free, and some of that which is included in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So whenever that is the case, normally the Dungeon Master Guide will have a link to an image that you could share, whereas the you know, this is the Rod of Absorption, and it's got a lot of notes here as well. If I look at the Rod of Absorption within the SRD, it has a lot of those same notes, but doesn't have the link to the image, for instance. You can also quickly scan through and see which items are not in the SRD, but are in the magic item, the Dungeon Master's Guide, for instance, as well. You can also determine if you want to see templates or not. And a template is something that you would utilize in the Forge. And the Forge is still available here to link, where you can, let's clear this out, where you can drag and drop, you know, your items. Your magic item templates would go on the right hand side and your equipment would go on the left, and then you would forge the magic item to create a brand new item. That again would add it into your None category until you choose to group it into a different location. And we'll come back to this in a minute when I do a quick character build. I'll show you, you know, some other kind of cool stuff you can do with that. Let's see, NPCs. NPCs have some similar functionality, where here you've got, you know, this, I've got a lot of different books open, and so this kind of shows me all of those together, all in one area, and sorts them. And I can look for, you know, stuff by just typing here. If I want to look for anything with the word goblin in it, this looks across all of my sources to look for things that have the word goblin. Now, on top of that, there's the type drop-down. And in the type drop-down, I could come through and I could select, you know, different types of creatures. So I could select, for instance, elementals. And this shows me all the elementals in the different books that I have. If I wanted to show, for instance, a Fey creature, I could pull up the Fey, and now I've got, in the new Dungeons & Dragons Volo's Guide to Monsters, I have an Annis Hag. And see that the Annis Hag has all of the information for that with the link to the image. And then I can also see here, okay, well this anishag is a CR6. So if I had that in an encounter and I wanted to change things up for my own encounter, but I still wanted to have a Fey creature, then I could just do a combination of the type Fey, and then I could say, okay, I want to look for other CR6 Fey. So here I've got a mirror hag. I could switch it out with that, for instance. This comes from the Tome of Beasts. Or I could add a red cap. Now the instance of the red cap, this is kind of interesting, but I switched back to not filtering on the CR. I could do a quick search on red cap, and you'll see that there is a red cap that is from the Volo's Guide to Monsters, and then there's a third-party version of a red cap as well. And so those will now look different. So they'll both show up, but this group listing column over on the side tells you exactly which one is which. So here I can see the differences between their stats. One of them's a CR3, and then this one over here is a CR6. And so they both have images, and this is the one from the Volo's Guide. And then here, this is the one from the Tome of Beast. So you can choose which one you want to have in your campaign. Okay, let's see. Let me clear this out again real quick. And again, you can filter on the groups here. Only you want to pull up monster manual stuff, you could filter that way. So let's see, after the NPCs we have, this is a new edition now where you can just pull up the spells across the board. So the best way to get to those is to go to your library and then scroll down and look for spells, for instance. Or if you're going to create PCs, it shows up on the right as well. So under the spells section, you've got your standard grouping as before, and you also have a level sort. So if I want to see only level 2 spells, here I've got a list of my level 2 spells, and I also could change the source to say I only want to see, for instance, ranger spells. And so now you can say, show me all the level 2 ranger spells. And in this particular case, I've got the Player's Handbook Deluxe, and I also have the SRD5 data. So there's going to be some redundancy there, but then I've further gone and added the Book of Lost Spells, which is a third-party product that has some additional spells in there. So one of the things that's really kind of neat here is, let me clear this out real quick. I've created a new spell. If you want to create a new one, you can actually create it directly here. And this is one of the very often requested functionalities and features here. So if you have any other, custom homebrew stuff, you can come through and you can say, okay, I want to do a blood blade, for instance. Then you can come through and fill out all the information, put the level, maybe make it level 2, conjuration, fill out all of this information like you normally would. So I'm going to move it off to the side. I'll show you one that I've already created, which happens to be called a Black Blade of Doom, I believe. And you'll see here it goes into a group that says none for now. So I can pull this up and I can unlock it, edit it, and you'll see that whatever you put in here, let me just grab this. If I copied the same stuff, I could go down, drop it in, put in a duration, whatever, concentration. And then when you're done, you just lock it, and now you have multiple blades. So I've got the Black Blade of Doom, and then I have this Blood Blade that I just created. Those will now show up in the order, and I can use those on characters, and characters can use those to create stuff. If you wanted to group those in a different way, you could also assign it to a group. So here I could drop it into a bucket, for instance. But all of these things will automatically pick it up. So for instance, the where is it? The Black Blade of Doom is a conjuration. And it is set to a cleric spell. So if I actually went to the source cleric, now my custom spell shows up as an available cleric spell. So you can add whatever you want very easily here. Also, I mentioned that you can do some editing. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's Blade Barrier. So let's say that you wanted a different version of a spell that's there. You could base it off of an existing spell. So you notice that you can't unlock that. It says it's read only. That's because this comes from the actual player's handbook. But what you can do is you can drag it back into here. And now I've got 2 versions of Blade Barrier. Do a search here, Blade Barrier. And you'll see that there's there's 3 versions. There's the player's handbook version, the SRD version, and now this new version. I can open up the new version and I can edit it and I can make it whatever I want. And I can call it Blade Barrier of Doom. Just throw of Doom on anything and it makes it that much better. So I probably want that to be a level 7 version because, it's very doomy. And there you go. And that's all you have to do to make your own spells. So let's see, after spells we have feats. So feats here show up. This is just a very simplified list, but it does allow you again to pull stuff from a number of different sources. Then same thing with backgrounds as well. Backgrounds show up across all sources that you have loaded. And I'm going to show you a real quick character creation here at the very end of the video. So stay tuned and I'll show you how easy it is to make characters now. Okay, next up we have encounters. So encounters, you can go right into the encounters here, or those are normally when you're in GM mode, you're creating your own stuff. So that would be a place where you could go into encounters. So encounters, we have a new feature which is called, let me go back to the all here. These show all the encounters from the different things that I have. So in this case I have Princes of the Apocalypse, and I've got it broken down by chapter. Chapter 2, Chapter 3, whatever. And the encounter looks pretty much the same as what it did before. So it's got the CR, the XP, the number appearing, if there's any tokens assigned, these are the NPCs, and these are pre-placed on a map, evidently because of the check mark. So we have a new function called random encounters. So if you click on random, this opens up a list of random encounters. And the only place that we're really utilizing this right now is within the Volo's Guide to Monsters. But I'll use that as an example to just kind of show you what one might look like. So I'm going to dive right into the Beholder, Lesser Minions, Goblins. And in this particular case, you'll see that there are 10d10 plus 50 goblins appearing and 3d4 goblin bosses. So you know, here's those generic goblins, and then there's the goblin bosses. So now if I click on this button here, it's going to generate a brand new encounter. It's going to create the encounter and tell me how many are appearing. So I click the button and now I have 117 goblins and 7 goblin bosses, and it calculated the CR12 and the experience for me automatically. So if you were to create your own, and I have one example of maybe an aboleth that I used before that I'll reuse. So come through here, do the add item, let's call it an aboleth party, and you see I already did this once before, but then all you need to do, I'll close all these down, I just need to grab some NPCs. So let's grab an aboleth from the monster manual, drop him in. I only ever want there to be one aboleth, but let's give him some minions. So how about some Grimlocks? That would seems like they might hang out with an aboleth, and let's say there's going to be 2d6 of those, and let's give him something a little bit more exciting. How about an Etten? And let's grab the Etten from here, and we'll say there's maybe 1d3 Ettens. So now that I've created those, I can lock this down and hit generate encounter, and now it generated 2 Ettens, 9 Grimlocks, and the 1 aboleth. And you're ready to go. If you drop this into the combat, it'll automatically treat it just like any other encounter from there. And if you don't like the numbers that are appearing, you can always just unlock it, and you can say, okay, really 9's a little bit crazy, so I'm going to drop that back down to 5, recalculate the CR, and you're good to go. So that's the random encounters edition. Next we have a story. Actually, I'm going to take a break for a second here, and I'm just going to show you how you can group your own stuff. So under the encounters, as I mentioned before, we have the group called None. So these are the 2 encounters that I just created. I could have other encounters that I want from different areas, but let's add a new section. And so what I did is I clicked on the drop down, and I changed the I clicked the Edit Groups button. And now I've got this little plus button. So I can come through and I can rename these. If I don't like the way these are named, I can make them whatever I want. Or I can come through and add a brand new one, and it starts creating a group 1 entry. So instead of group 1, I'm going to call it my, let's see, Aboleth of Doom Adventure, because of course it's got of Doom. I'll hit enter and it adds that as a new group. So now there's a new group called Aboleth of Doom. So now that that's available, I can just drag Aboleth, both of my encounters to that, and now they're in that group. So makes it really pretty easy. We probably are going to make a few little edits here. We're continuing to refine this. We might make it so if I create a brand new encounter now, let's call it Froghemoth, Froghemoth, yeah, that's probably how it's pronounced. So let's make a Froghemoth, and let's say I was going to add some creatures to this. You notice that it didn't automatically drop in here. That's again because it went into this none group. So here I'd have to go back up and then drag it over. So we're going to work on maybe fine-tuning that just a little bit here in a future update. Maybe 3.2.1 might address that. But play around with it. Let us know what you think. You know, it gives you lots of flexibility to kind of build your own groups and to organize stuff. The other thing I recommend doing is making this wider, but make it a little bit deep as well, so that you've got room for these drop downs to fill and to still have visibility of the list below that. Okay, so that's encounters. The next thing that we have up are stories and story templates. So stories, to get to the story templates, if you click on the link here, you'll notice that there is a story entry, but there's not a story template. That's similar to the random encounters in that the only way to get to the story templates is to start off into the story area. You can click it here or there, and then look for the template button. Just like with encounters, you had to go into the encounters and then random to get to the random encounters. So there's just some functionality that's very tightly linked with one area, and so you have to go into that area to then expand. That's just because we didn't want a proliferation of too many buttons to start popping up everywhere. So you've got your normal story stuff like before, but now you have this templates button. And so what is a story template? So a story template is essentially a way to generate randomized story content, and a lot of times that will be driven by stuff that's in random tables that you've created. So there's a ton of random tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's a ton of them in some of the third-party stuff that we have, and also in like the Volo's Guide to Monsters. So I want to showcase one of those, which is a beholder template that comes in the Volo's Guide to Monsters. So if I click this, you'll see that it has all of this stuff. It looks very similar to a regular story, but it's got some other stuff going on here. So what this is going to do is this is going to dynamically generate a story entry with a bunch of descriptive text for a beholder. And so you'll see there's some chat windows and some other stuff. But this, if I scroll up to the top here, you'll see that it has a name, and it's going to roll 1d3 times on the beholder names table. If I actually open up my tables and look for, I'm just going to do a search for beholder. So here's a lot of tables with different stuff for beholders, and my image is in the way here. So under the names, if I scroll down to beholder names, you'll see that it's got a bunch of different names here, 20 different names that a beholder might have. So this is going to roll on this table 3 times and then just kind of put them all in order. Now down below here, there's a beholder body diameter section, and it similarly will have a bracketed table name that says beholder body diameter. So if I scroll up to the beholder body diameter, you'll see that they can be anything from 4 feet wide to 6 feet wide, and they have different random, assignments, which make some of them more more common than others. For instance, if I roll this table, normally it'll just roll it out to chat and disclose it. But in this particular case, it's going to roll that and then stick it in the text. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. Let me move these dice out of the way so you can see. There is a generate button at the bottom. Maybe shrink it up a little bit. So if I scroll through here, if I click generate, it is actually going to create a brand new story. And this one's name is just Vexler or Velxer. If I was to roll again, let's see if it gives me a different one. ZO, each of these is getting only a single entry. There we go. Finally, I got one that had multiple names. So on the 1d3, it said, okay, well now I'm going to roll 3 times on that chart, and now I've got 3 names. So I've just very quickly created 3 different beholders, which will all be different from each other. So let me hide all these and show you what that looks like, kind of side by side. Get rid of all this stuff for a sec. So here's beholder 1, here's beholder 2, and here's beholder 3. Actually, I did 4, I guess. So if I expand this guy out, you'll see that all of these were just static links, so those all appeared no matter which template I generated. But you'll see here that they are different size. This one's only 5 feet wide. These two are both 5.5 feet wide. This one's green, this one's pinkish, this one's green as well. This one has thick and pointed teeth, and this one has human-like teeth. On top of that, if I scroll through here, you'll see that I was able to dynamically generate, let's see, shrink that up here. I was able to dynamically generate what each one of the eyes looked like for this particular beholder. And then below that, I also have the personality, ideals and bonds, the flaws, and I also have links to the minions that work for this particular beholder. And those have all been randomized. And so if I scroll down here and see this one, you'll see that it has different minions. This one has orcs and orc war chiefs working for it. If I open that up, it's going to be a random encounter, our new random encounter feature. And then it has some trolls. This is also a random encounter. And chimeras, 2 sets of chimeras basically. This one has some fire giants and a roper that works for it. Also, because the story templates allow you to do everything that you could do in a regular story, you can put box text here. And this particular case, I actually built something that I could share with the players that is now combines all of this information I've already rolled and puts it into a nice paragraph format. So here I say, Nagash Thymax Barixis is a 5.5 foot wide beholder with a warty green skin, a normal sized and shaped mouth featuring human-like teeth around the edge of the eye. So you can really kind of mix and match and combine these things and make them your own. You can furthermore, you can edit any of the templates that we have right now and then just kind of expand upon them if you want, and just really do all sorts of kind of crazy stuff with it. So this particular case, one of the things that I didn't disclose is that you see here it rolled randomly for the name, and then later on it referred back to that same name. So there's an idea that you could refer stuff. So if I go back into my stories and my templates, under the beholder template, you'll see that I use the square brackets up here, and that tells it to roll against the table. Down below, I actually add the angled brackets. And what that does is it's going, when it rolls for the square brackets up here, it's going to generate what those return values are, and then immediately it's going to go back and look and say, did you have any angle brackets below? And if so, then just take that value that I already rolled and put it in there. Some of the other stuff that you can do is you can use dice. You can add a dice roll in brackets, and it will roll the result of that dice. You can also specify that you want to roll on just one column in a table. If there's a table that has 6 columns and you only want to roll on column 4, for instance, you can put comma 4 and it will roll it in that way. So I'm going to show real quick a few other really interesting sort of things that we have. So here we just added this to the DMG because it's one of the modules that we went back and really kind of utilized this functionality. So here's an example of, you can do a dungeon adventure framework. I'm going to show you all the ones in the DMG. So you can go in and do a, let's see, here's a dungeon adventure framework which has, let me move my dice back out of the way, has some different things that you can look up. If I hit generate, it very quickly tells me, gives me, some stuff that I can use as a DM to help kind of give me some good ideas on how I can create a dungeon adventure. In this particular case, the goal is to destroy a magical threat inside of a dungeon that is in a chasm that was once created by mind flayers as a planar gate. And the creators, the mind flayers, were at one point destroyed by attacking raiders. Now there's a beast or monstrosity that is currently living in there that the players will have to deal with, and that beast is focused on mayhem and wants to enact the vengeful will of a god or patron. It does so by stalking people, but a special weapon that is out there can deal extra damage to it when used against this creature. And then so it just gives you tons and tons of stuff. So I love all of that content was already there. It was already in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It was in all of these random tables. But this really just kind of boils it all down for you, allows you to really combine all of that power and functionality to very quickly spit out several different ideas. And then you can just throw away the ones that you don't want and then modify and further expand upon the ones that you do like. So that was an example. Here's an event-based version of the same thing, which is, got some of the same sort of stuff, but you'll see here, it's got some important NPCs that you can then choose from. You can fill in the blank in a few other areas, and you can have random dice rolls dropped in there too, if that makes a difference for you. Here's one that is a random settlement, is very nice. So random settlement has a box text at the top that now tells me the settlement's known for its delicious cuisine, and a river divides the town. So you've got that. You've got what the race relations are, the ruler status. Here's some notable buildings that you might encounter, and you could further expand this. If you happen to have just a whole ton of different images for different buildings, instead of it just saying tavern, you could actually have links to different types of taverns with different maps and images of floor plans that you wanted, and you could really make a completely random town generator that you could refer back to in your encounters and your adventures. So the random settlement's a great one. The urban chase planner, I think, could really have a lot of fun. This one was kind of one that we just threw in because we thought it could be kind of fun. So here's where you can have maybe 8 different participants in a race. What I would recommend doing is maybe just have like your combat tracker loaded up, and then just go in initiative order and apply what happens each round to each person. And so this looks at, the Dungeon Master Guide has an urban chase complications table, and it just looks and sees if there's a complication for everybody that's in a race, where there may be the bad guys are trying to escape and the players are chasing them down, and you don't want to go into turn order because that's kind of boring when people say, okay, they ran off, now what happens? And then everybody moves 30 feet per round or whatever, and then it it makes it impossible to really have an exciting chase. So this is meant to kind of spice that up a little bit. Same thing if the players are trying to escape and bad guys are chasing after them. So here, for instance, okay, participant 1, participants 4, 5, 6, and 7 didn't have any issues at all, along with participant 2. But participant 1, as they were trying to, make their way, either running away or chasing after someone, got blocked by a crowd. So now it says make a DC 10 strength check, or dexterity acrobatics check, your choice, to make your way through the crowd. Otherwise, if you fail, the crowd counts as 10 feet of difficult terrain. So then you've fallen behind in that particular race. Here's another example where a pack of dogs is fighting over food right where you're trying to run through, and so you have to dodge around them, or you take some damage as they bite you and they slow you down a little bit as you're trying to run. So this sort of thing, I think, just really fun and be interesting to see what sort of stuff you guys create. And if you guys create some really cool stuff, try, I'd recommend throwing it up on the DMs Guild, and I think other DMs could really benefit from some of that creativity. Okay, so that's story templates, and look on the wiki, look in the user manual. There's a lot more information and some examples to kind of walk you through there. We've updated that. Let's move along to the next thing, which is formatted dice. Not formatted dice, manual dice. And so manual dice is a new option that we just turned on to really promote play at the table. So here, the very first option under your campaign options is now dice manual entry. So you can turn that on, and what that basically will do is it will prompt you whenever you do an action that would have rolled dice before, and it will allow you to either continue to let Fantasy Grounds roll the dice for you, or it will basically allow you to roll the dice on the table, tell you what the values were, and then go from there. So I'm just going to show you very quickly with an NPC. Let's take I'll take a dragon, for instance. So a dragon, if he was going to attack someone, and actually let me have, I'm going to throw them into, here you go, adult black dragon, and versus an avatar of death. Sounds good. Okay, so let's say these two are fighting. I'll make one of them a neutral faction, or friendly. Maybe it's a friendly black dragon. I don't know why, but it is. So if I, as a DM, wanted to do an attack roll, normally I would just say, okay, we'll do the attack plus 11 against the avatar of death. But now what's going to happen is it's going to bring up this little manual dice entry window. And on that window it says, okay, I'm expecting the result of a d20. Tell me what it's going to be. So I would roll the d20 and then maybe show it to the camera if I wanted to do that. Whatever the case, okay, I rolled an 8. And now if I hit check, then it'll still calculate and tell me whether I hit or I missed against the target. So you still get the automation, the benefit of the automation, but it allows you to put in your own values. If I had actually hit, then what I could do is just say, okay, well, I want to go over to the damage, and it's going to be 2d6 plus 6 slashing. Let me actually pretend it was a bite, because that's a little bit more interesting. Well, I'll show you the slashing first. So slashing comes up and it says, okay, I'm expecting 2d6 roll. So okay, you got a 4 and you got a 5, or 4 and a 3. So here it would apply that damage, for instance. Well, that guy doesn't have much hit points. The other thing that you could do is if you don't want to roll both dice, sorry, drag it back up here. If you don't want to roll and plug in every single dice value, then just let your players roll like their 2d6 and they say, okay, well I got an 11, for instance. Just type it into the first field and then hit the checkbox. And that'll have the same effect. Where that might come into play, where you really want to pay attention, is in a situation where it does multiple types of damage. So for instance, here I'm doing 2d10 plus 6 piercing plus 1d8 acid. And so maybe the creature has some protection against acid, but not to the piercing, or vice versa. So here the 2d10, I could say, okay, well, what did you get on the 2d10? Then your player would say, okay, well, I did, say, 14 points of piercing, and I did 3 points of acid. So just skip the other d10. I mean, you could put in each individual die roll if you want, but I think that's just going to be a faster way to kind of get to the result you want. The other thing that you can do is, if you're rolling, let's grab something bigger here. How about, I guess it's all fine. I'll drop that on here. So if you don't want to put in the rolls at all, or if you just want to continue using the random roll, just click on the roll button and it'll roll like normal. So that way, if you have players that want to roll their own dice but you want to just have fancy rounds to it, you can get the best of both worlds with that option. Okay, so that's the manual dice rolls. And then when you're done, just turn it off and you're back to it automatically rolling normal damage. Let's see. Okay, so next I'm going to do a real quick character creation and show you what that looks like now. So again, you got the GM, the play, and you have this create PC option. So this is what I would recommend. So you go to PCs, let's just create 2 real quick characters here. And I'm going to do them both at the same time. Okay, so character 1 and character 2. So let's say I'm going to have Radaban, and I'm going to make Radaban, I'm going to grab a, let's see, how about a Goliath? Sounds good. And then here I'm going to do Sorna, and let's make her just like maybe like a druid or something like that. Let's see, I think I've got some here that looks good. Alright, so I'm going to make her like an elf druid. And so I'm going to go through, you would roll your dice or set your stats like you normally would. So since he's a Goliath, let's make him like a fighter. Let's say he's, just throw some values in here for now. Probably switch these, 13, 12, okay. And then she's going to have druid, so she's going to maybe be higher on her wisdom. And let's see, 15, 14, 13, 12, okay. And so let's go grab the race next. So under races, move my picture out of the way here. I'm going to grab an elf. So let's grab an elf. And you'll see I type in the first couple characters and it pulls it up. You can grab the elf from any of those sources. I'm going to grab it from the player's handbook, drop it here, and ask me which type of elf I want. Let's make her a wood elf. Click on the link to read up about that if you want. So let's make her a wood elf, and you'll see over the side it's going to add all of her abilities just like it used to before. Let's make him a Goliath, and here I've got 2 versions. I've got the Elemental Evil Player's Companion version and the one from Volo's Guide. So I'll use the Volo's Guide option, make him a Goliath, and he's good to go there. Now I'm going to go to classes, and let's see, I want to make him just a standard fighter. Grab a fighter, drop it in, and I'll give him acrobatics and athletics for his skills. And for her, I'm going to make her a druid. Okay, and I'm going to give her maybe nature and perception. Okay, so that's all pretty much kind of how it was before, with the only difference being, you know, these things were a little bit easier to jump right to because the buttons are all there that I'm building. Backgrounds, yeah, let's grab some backgrounds too. So let's say, she'll be a hermit, and he will be a far traveler. But the nice thing is that you now have all of them visible on one screen, and you can search. Makes it a lot faster to kind of build characters in general. Okay, so now here's where we start to get a little bit different with what we can do. So you'll notice here that their AC is 12 for Radaban and 13 for Sworna. So let's give them some armor. And in the past, what you had to do is you had to click into here and set these values when you did that. So now we've done that for you, and now I can go right into items. I can pull up a type, armor, and let's say hide armor. Let's give her hide. And I'm going to give her hide armor of acid resistance. Drop that in there. And then for him, he's going to get a, I don't know, maybe a chain shirt. All right, let's give him chainmail. All right, so I'll give him chainmail. And now, close that back down. You'll see that there's this indicator here. It says equipped. By default, it's going to assume that you want to equip that. And what that's going to do when it's equipped is, in addition to it, and totaling it for your encumbrance down here, on the main tab now, if I go back to the main tab for each, you'll see that her AC is now 14 and his is a 16. If I expand that out, it has now set the 6 armor proficiency for me automatically. For hers here, you'll see that I've got that in there. And here it automatically knew that she does get a dex bonus, but with a max of 2 for this specific item. Let's see. So let's go back in. Let's give them both a shield and a weapon. And so let's go to here. I'm going to type in, it's an armor, shield, and I'm just going to give him a regular shield. And I'm going to give her, because she's special for some reason, I'm going to give her a +1 shield. All right, and then I'm going to give them both some weapons. So let's give, let's see, staff. Oops, I have to change it from armor down to weapons. Let's do a quick quarterstaff. Yeah, she's get all kinds of magic items for some reason. It's going to be marked as carried. Over here, he's going to have a battle axe. Just grab a regular battle axe, and I'm going to give him maybe a couple javelins. Just drop a javelin in here, and you're all set. So he's going to be not equipped with the javelin, but he's going to mark it as, you'll see that here if I change it to carried or not carried. If I put it as carried, then it will show up in my actions tab. So if I go to actions, you'll see that, oops, let's see. Javelin, let's make 2 of these. There we go. Okay, so under the actions, here you'll see I've got those still show up, but my battle axe is the one that's actually carried. If I go to my main tab, you'll see my armor class is now 18, and it adjusted my shield. Her armor class is now a 17, and here is her quarterstaff with the damage that it's going to do. So if I go in, if I wanted to, maybe I don't have my javelins, maybe I left them on my horse. If I turn them off, then they should be disappearing from here. Let's see, preparation. There we go, combat. So now they don't show up at all, but they do show up under the standard tab or under the preparation tab. You can also change it here if I want to say, okay, I want to mark it as carried. So you don't have to go back to the inventory. You can do it directly here. But then when you're in combat, they won't show up unless they're marked as equipped. So you can toggle that and then they'll show up. Okay, so that's the changes to character creation. So I know I've talked for a long time. It's 43 minutes into the video, so I'll probably just wrap it up here. But we hope to see your comments on the forums. What do you like? What do you still want us to do? What are some other things that we can do to continually improve Fantasy Grounds and make it easier for what you need? So thanks again. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks for your patience and waiting for us to get 3.2 out. It's a big change, and we hope you like it. Take care.
they call it.
Me and my husband Andrei, we were happy until one day. He just packed his stuff and left. Without an explanation, he left me. I found out where expedition was taking place from Andrei's co-workers and friends. Without a second thought, I went to my beloved to help him and find out why did he left me. A moment later, our ship crashed into the reef. I lost my consciousness. As I woke up, I found myself on an island. What surprised me is that there was no shipwreckage, no the bodies of the crew around. I was alone.
Top scientists on the zombie virus that appeared 2 weeks.
Alone. Let's get more on this.